Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Cars Reading Skills workshop as part of the Jack Westin MCAT podcasts. Today, as always, I'm joined by Jack. Jack, so excited to have you. We have so much fun in these podcasts, and I'm excited for today's passage as well.
Always a pleasure, Molly. Yes, and this passage I think is, you know, I think most students will read it and go, "Oh my gosh, like what is going on?" It's so philosophical. I mean, I think it's a political science passage, but
Yeah.
regardless, if it reads like a philosophy passage,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
we could go over every sentence and break it down. But I think what most students, most test takers are looking for is how do I read something like this and answer all the questions within 10 minutes, right? Because that's what you're given, and on average, 10 minutes per passage, which is, 90 minutes, 9 passages. Well, let's try to see how to think through this as a test taker who's going to get every question right. What do we look for? What it matters? What like obviously some of this stuff is gonna like just go from one eye to the other, one side of our brain to the other, and not even register, right? But what can we pick up that really, really matters?
Yeah. I love that focus on realism, right? Being realistic with yourself. I feel like over the past couple Cars Reading Skills workshops, we've had passages that are a little bit easier to digest. So I'm excited to be going over this passage today. For anyone listening that has not attended or listened to a Cars Reading Skills workshop, during these podcasts, we go through sentence by sentence some of our Jack Weston daily Cars passages. So we release new content on our website every single day, jackweston.com. You can find the passage that we'll be going over today on our website if you are listening on August 13th when this is posted. The passage is called Patriotism. If you are not listening to this on August 13th, you can also check out the link in the description. We will link it there. It's always nice to give the passage a try or a quick read through before getting too in depth with our breakdown so that you can compare how you read it to how we are reading it. Again, it's not the easiest read today, but that offers a lot of opportunities to grow and learn. And again, it's wonderful and it feels good to focus on passages that are easier reads or that are in your car subjects that you're more interested in or more comfortable with. But it's always important to challenge yourself because those are the times that you really learn and grow. So super excited to get into it. I think we're ready, Jack,
Let's do
right? Ready
it.
to hop in?
Let's go for it.
All right. Okay, so we're going to start off, as always, with sentence number one of paragraph one. And it says, Fatherland or patria is the land of one's father, of one's ancestors, and also of one's mother if she has not changed her abode before giving birth. Okay. Um, Very technical, very odd. What I'm getting from this, we're talking about the fatherland, and it almost sounds like this sentence is being very literal. Fatherland is your father's land. It's got this weird commentary on what's going on with the mother, but fatherland is the father's land. That's what I'm getting from this.
Right, right. Definitely something very literal, but then the confusing part is the mother. So if one's
Yeah.
mother has not changed her abode, well, abode means residence, right? So if your mother does change her abode before giving birth, it's not the same. That part's kind of confusing, but at least we understand that fatherland is literally your father's or your ancestors' land. All right, boom.
Yeah.
That's important on the first read. I understand that. I think most students understand that. Go with that and move forward, right?
Hmm. Yeah, we'll see if we characterize this anymore, if we clarify the mother. If it is, it'll be clarified. It's not
Right.
clear right now. You just got to do your best. Okay, our next sentence says the derivation finds even more intimate expression in the Italian term la madre patria, or mother fatherland. Oh my gosh, we're digging ourselves even deeper now. I see the word intimate. It's an intimate expression. That's the only thing that's really standing out to me here, other than this mother fatherland, building off this fatherland and the mother, if she hasn't changed her abode. it's taking the confusion a step further here.
Yeah, and remember, we're looking for sentences that are very clear, and
Mhm.
most paragraphs have one at some
Yeah.
point. Usually at the end of the paragraph, they clear it up, whatever they really cared about, right?
Yeah.
And so most students will read the first two sentences and give up on this entire passage.
Yeah.
They'll either give up internally and keep reading it, feeling defeated, or
Mhm.
they'll just literally skip this passage. I don't recommend skipping a passage because every single passage has easy questions, right?
Yeah.
I argue the harder the read, the easier the
These are the
question
questions.
because
Mhm.
there's less important information to obtain, right? Like this is not like there's nothing in this sentence that's testable. How am I going to be tested on the derivation or the Italian term la Madeira patria? Like how like
Yeah.
it's not testable. It's not clear, right? And so what we're looking for, and that this is something that you have to train yourself to do, and that's why these sessions are so impactful, is look for very testable sentences that are obvious, that are very clear to anyone who would read them. We call it common person in our course, right? Common person sentences that are very obvious, layman sentences. That's not this, right? Like this is not that layman. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's look at our next sentence. It says the Englishman ignores the family connection and uses the broader concept of the region or country, in parentheses here, which concept is also found in other languages in, for example, pays, pace, or land. And then you see the end of parentheses. So we're now getting even deeper into the basically the definition of fatherland, right? It's like the way that it seems different countries express fatherland and what that means.
Right.
English, it's broader, but again, there hasn't been a really direct claim. So far, I'm just thinking like we're describing different takes on fatherland. That's what I'm getting from the paragraph so far. I'm not really personally tracking any one of these more or less than the other.
Right. They could take the case of the differing viewpoints of fatherland given Italian or English.
Englishman,
Like,
yeah,
they could go down that route, or they could just generalize or try to define, what fatherland really means. We have to figure that out.
yeah.
Okay.
All right, last sentence of the paragraph. Let's hope it gets clearer. It says, thus, patriotism, love of the fatherland, is at its root an attachment to country through one's relatives. Okay, lovely. This, you mentioned, Jack, sometimes if you have a paragraph that starts off really broad or really abstract or difficult to understand, sometimes if it continues in that direction, they'll leave a sentence at the end that's there to clinch it up and to make it make sense. I feel like this sentence really plays that role. So we're talking about patriotism has to do with sort of familial relationships, right? Your familial attachments is related to this idea of fatherland and patriotism. That's what connects the random definitions that we got before. This sentence makes more sense than the others.
Yeah, for sure. So patriotism involves an attachment to country through one's relatives.
Hmm.
So I have to understand that. Now, this is the problem most students have because they've been reading this and they're feeling defeated. They may miss this sentence, or they may not fully grasp what this sentence is saying. My best advice to you is when you find a sentence that's very clear, straightforward, like this one, relative to the other sentences that were way more abstract, please take your time to really digest it. Take your time to understand it. This is
Hmm.
testable. So you're responsible for this, right? Understanding what this means, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, and I think that's the only thing I would keep track of from this paragraph.
Yeah. And I feel like what you just said is so important. I want to stress it even more. Every sentence is not made equal. If you get a sentence that's more clear, especially if it's the one sentence that's clear in the whole paragraph, make sure you understand that sentence. Like that is your sentence. It's the one that's the most clear. It's the one that puts everything together. Make sure you understand it, not just that you read it and you say, oh, cool, that's important. Do you know what it says? Because
Yeah,
you're saying it's important.
yeah,
You're
and
going to put it in your map.
totally. And the other important thing is sometimes a sentence like this last sentence we just read, may actually be too abstract for another passage, right?
Hmm.
Like, you may read and find an even more simple sentence, easier sentence to understand than this.
Yeah.
It's all relative. It's all based on the context. Like, what are you reading? What seems important? This is obviously written by someone who's probably not American, probably 50, 60 years ago. Who knows? Like, it's a while ago, right? We don't really write like this anymore. But regardless, we can still find something to lean on, right? And that's
Mhm.
what we're leaning on is the more clear sentences of the paragraph.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, let's look forward. Let's head into paragraph 2, see how this develops. Our first sentence says, it is of the least value where it justifies the protection of one's material interests or where the individual uses it for his own purposes, for misdeeds committed in the name of the fatherland are legion. Okay, I feel like the first part makes the most sense. It's not valuable where it's self-interested. Basically, it kind of sounds like patriotism shouldn't be self-interested. It shouldn't be about you, right? It shouldn't be about your own benefit. The whole idea of misdeeds committed in the name of the fatherland are legion. When I think of legion, I think of like a giant army, like there's a bunch of them. Maybe that's where we're going. I don't know. I feel like that word in this context is unusual, kind of hard to understand. The beginning makes sense. It's not about you. Patriotism is not about your benefit.
Right.
Perhaps it's
Something
about the fatherland as a group or relating to your relatives.
exactly. It's trying to emphasize relatives by saying it's not, and the opposite of relatives, which is you, right?
Hmm.
Your
Hmm.
material interests.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. The term patriotism is of the highest value where the fatherland is conceived as transcendent, as a sacrifice demanding superior idea, consisting in the perception of the nation as an eternal thing, surpassing the individual life, encompassing in its needs and interests the future of the unborn.
So
Okay.
abstract.
It's so abstract, but it does continue kind of what we were saying before, right? We were talking about how it's not about just you. It kind of sounds like it's about everything else. It's
Right,
like it's this
right.
one like all-seeing, all relevant being, right? Encompassing the needs of the future of the unborn, right? It's bigger
Okay,
than you, is what I'm getting.
right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. And this is the highest value. It was least value when it's all about you. It's the highest value when it's about everyone or it's about this abstract, idea or ideal even. Um, that's what patriotism means to the author, and that's worth tracking. Okay, last sentence. Patriotism means the most then when it involves the individual thinking about the past and future of his family. Hey, we got another much simpler, more tangible sentence. Um, Again, we kind of understood from earlier in this paragraph that it's not about you as an individual. This is very clear, right? Patriotism means the most or is most highest value, right? When it's about the past and future of your family. It kind of feels similar to what we said in paragraph 1, right? It has to do with familial relationships, but this is more about the time frame, right? Fatherland or patriotism is about the past and the future of your family, not just the country feels like a family member.
Right. This
So,
is a great recap of the whole paragraph and also kind of clears up the last paragraph too, right?
exactly.
What relatives really means, right? So
Mm,
I feel like it's probably too soon, and I'm jumping it by saying this is probably the part of the main idea. But we've heard relatives and family and patriotism in multiple paragraphs, and you know how I feel about ideas that keep repeating. Those ideas tend to become our main argument, our main idea, right? And so
mm,
I would really stick to this idea of patriotism is really defined by, how it involves one's family, right? It's
mm.
best when it involves one's family. That's the idea that I would keep track of.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very similar to paragraph 1, but it is a little different.
More
Um,
specific. It's more
More
specific.
specific,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Okay, well let's take a look at paragraph number 3. And I apologize in advance if I butcher this word that I've found through Googling is German. It says patriotism is best when it is combined with the love of one's familial home, Heimatliebe, which springs spontaneously from a personal, concrete, and close familiarity of life and experience with accidental objects, parental home, mountain, valley, tree, dog, echo, the separation from which causes nostalgia. So now we're saying patriotism is best, not just when you think of your family, but your familial home. So the place that you are nostalgic for, the place that you grew up. So not just about the person or the family member, but now the place where your family grew up or the place where you have your history you're
Right, right.
nostalgic for.
And this isn't very different than the last paragraph. This is just defining what family is to the author, right? So in many ways, family is defined as this kind of like familial home where like you've done things there, right? Like it's personal, right? It's close, it's familiar to you. And so I just keep that in mind that that's how the author defines family.
Yeah. It's like family is broader than just family members.
Right.
Your
Exactly.
area is part of your family. And that's kind of, similar to what we got in paragraph one. That again, to be patriotic is to, feel like your fatherland is like this familial relationship. We are seeing this idea develop, Jack. I'm getting the same spidey senses tingling that this might be an important component of our main idea,
Right.
our idea from paragraph two. But we'll see. Um, okay, the great susceptibility of youth is the true source and the molder of Heimatliebe. Okay, so the susceptibility of youth, it's when you are, kind of forming those familial bonds. Kind of a abstract sentence, but that's kind of what I would be getting for it, is you form this when you're a child, this sense of like nostalgia. It's where you grow up.
Okay.
Okay, last sentence. Seen from this point of view, patriotism, with its comprehensive feelings rising far above homely customs and manners, is an abstraction. Okay, so patriotism is an abstraction. That I could summarize, eliminating some of the noise. Um, do I know how that relates to familial home? Not really, right? Patriotism is an abstraction. What does that mean? I
Yeah.
guess we'll find out.
Well, I mean, the whole way the author's been describing it is pretty abstract, right?
Yeah,
Like the author hasn't really given us a clear definition of it, although they've been pointing us in a certain direction with, you know,
family. Yeah.
family-based, youthful, personal, right? Like these are all things that are pretty much the way the author describes family.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Let's see. Paragraph number 4 says patriotic feelings and Heimatliebe do not always correspond to each other. Hmm. Okay. So this is interesting. I mean, I thought Heimatliebe is the idea of the familial home. I thought patriotism was very closely aligned with family and familial home, but we're saying they don't always correspond. So I'm not gonna worry too much, but I'm gonna kind of I'm gonna just become a little bit more aware now because I thought those were things that we could relate, right? So why or when don't they correspond? What does that mean, right? Are we tweaking what we had said before? I just have my guard up a little bit, ready to see what else the paragraph brings.
Yeah.
Okay, the let's see. The former makes demands which may be alien to the nature of Heimatliebe or which may at least contrast with it. Okay, so it is possible that these things, patriotism and Heimatliebe, can be in opposition. That is possible. I'm still not sure. I don't have any concrete examples or anything of how this can happen, but that's not just a passing statement in sentence one. Yes, these can be in conflict. I don't know how, but it definitely can. We've said this
Well,
in two sentences.
we talked about patriotism, right, which is Heimatliebe, right, which is that like how you define patriotism. But then patriotic feelings, maybe that's different. Like the feelings you have versus patriotism itself. Maybe that's where they're going. This is
Could
so
be.
this is so deep. I would not fully grasp what's going on in the moment, and that's
Mhm.
okay. right? Like that's the point of this is as you're reading, understand that this is too abstract for 99.99% of the population.
Yeah.
And our goal is to just find the meaning out of this. How do we find meaning? We look for sentences that are clear, right?
Hmm. Yeah, it's like your little life raft in the sea of abstraction. In the sea of complex language, you find a sentence that's like your life raft that, you can hold on to and stay afloat. So let's see if we get one in this fourth paragraph. Um, okay, our next sentence, short and sweet. Patriotism may conflict with the love of one's home. Okay, that's much more direct than any of the other sentences. And it's pretty clear. Patriotism and the love of your home may not always be aligned. All right, so that kind of resolves the questions we had earlier. Yes, they can conflict. Love of your home or the familial home, Heimatliebe, and patriotism can be in conflict. Again, I don't know how, I don't know in what circumstances this may be true, but it is possible.
Yeah, again, not so clear how or why, but
Exactly. Yeah.
at least we understand that, there is some sort of conflict. Okay.
Hmm. Okay, imagine that for the love of one's country, one has to build a dam where one's childhood home sits. Okay. Now this is a hypothetical that again is asking the reader, imagine this. Okay, you have your familial home that's going to be destroyed, but the country would potentially benefit, right? You have to build a dam for the love of your country, but that's going to hurt your Heimatliebe. I see now how this could be in conflict.
Right.
Um,
Imagine you have to build a dam, right? Which is important for your patriotism, right?
mhm.
But then at the same time, it kind of conflicts with your Heimliebe, which is to love your home, right? You're kind of hurting your home in a way, right? By
Yeah. You're hurting your individual home to help your nationwide home.
which is what the author has been pointing to, right? The
Yeah.
whole thing is like, hell, hey, this is not about you. This is not about your material stuff,
Yeah.
even though it might be your own home. Your
Hmm. Yeah. Okay, our next sentence says, it is like the antagonism of two related points of view, which, when observed, differ in quantity and quality. All right, I feel like we had two really clear sentences, and now we are right back where we started, kind of disappearing under the surface of all the abstraction. I mean, it sounds like it's like having two points of view that are in conflict. That's really what the sentence is saying, but they're saying it with more words and being less clear than they just were. I'm going to hold on to the sentences that had just made sense and the example that we had that had just made sense. And I would keep reading, not giving us something totally different. And then we see the last sentence of paragraph 4. It is at the same time the struggle between nature and politics, between variety and uniform will. Okay, so again, we're pointing at the fact that you can have patriotism and the love of your home conflict. This is it's saying that it's synonymous with these internal conflicts and struggles, but it's pretty unclear which is which, right? Don't sit here and agonize over it. We know that you can have conflict between patriotism and Heimatliebe or the love of your home. We had an example that was all very clear, very tangible. That's what I'm prioritizing from this paragraph.
Yeah, I don't understand that last sentence. It's
Mm,
not clear to me, right?
yeah,
So I would just focus on what I do understand. And it makes sense because the last paragraph mentioned how patriotism is best when it's combined with the love of one's familial home, which is Heimliebe. So in this case, it's not the same thing. Heimatliebe is not the same thing as patriotism, right? But when they're combined, that's when patriotism is at its best. And
yeah.
so it makes sense that sometimes they may conflict, that you can't necessarily do both.
Hmm. Yeah, it's best when they're together, but they won't always be.
Right.
Okay, let's look at paragraph 5. We'll see where we're getting. Patriotism is the integration, not the dissolution, of regional organization, and it may even gain a new, genuine element of strength through diversity in unity. Okay, we're talking about regional organization. We're talking about diversity and unity. I feel like diversity and unity is a kind of an oxymoron. That's kind of a complex thing to unpack and understand. Same with this entire sentence. We're continuing to talk about patriotism, but I'm not sure this sentence is giving us that much clear, tangible information that we should track.
Yeah, pretty abstract.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep reading. In a certain sense, this element already shows an quote international tinge. What? We're talking about patriotism is international?
Yeah,
Still not sure where we're going with this.
sounds a little negative too, like might have
Hmm.
an international like negativity to some extent. We have to see
Mm.
what they're trying to say with that word.
Yeah. But why international? I feel like patriotism is national. And we just have to keep reading, all right, and hope that it makes more sense and that they clarify.
Yeah.
Okay, for a man with a national outlook, the enjoyment of the colorful complex of national life presupposes a high degree of education and especially of civilization. Okay, so something about national life or national outlook requires education and civilization, right? This doesn't really relate to family. The first four paragraphs, right? Every paragraph leading up to this was all about how patriotism and fatherland relate to family, right? How they're similar, how they're joined, and how they can be in conflict. To be honest with you, Jack, I'm seeing this paragraph and I'm not really seeing anything that I feel like I truly need to
Nothing,
track.
yeah, this is rare, but it can definitely happen, especially for more like more dense passages like this. There will
Hmm.
be paragraphs that make no sense at all. I think this one, what it's trying to say after reading the last sentence, tinge is actually a good word, right? Because it's saying all these positive things. So tinge is like color. And when it's quoting international, it's not meaning it in a direct literal sense.
Yeah.
Meaning it as like you're worldly. You're just
Yeah. You're aware of other nations. Yeah.
yeah, you're just aware of things, right?
Mhm.
And so it kind of sounds like, oh, patriotism is a good thing. That's what this paragraph kind of gives me, that vibe, like, hey, patriotism is good for you. That's why we're even talking about this stuff, right? So
Mhm.
nothing really that obvious. Unfortunately, we didn't have a sentence that cleared anything up.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Okay, so is it fair for a student to keep reading to paragraph 6? What do you think, Jack?
absolutely. If the moment you stop and question yourself is when you've lost.
Yeah.
So as long as you have confidence and you're smiling, I'd smile when I read these passages because I know that they did this on purpose. They threw this out you to see if they can scare you, right? I look at it as like one of those Halloween mazes you go through and
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
out in the corner trying to scare you, right?
Hmm.
That's what this is. They're trying to scare you. They're trying to throw you off your game. Don't fall for it. There's been maybe two or three, four sentences max that have mattered so far, and those are the only sentences they can ask questions about.
Yes, absolutely. Cool. Well, we've got 2 paragraphs left. Let's take a look at paragraph 6. Very short first sentence. It says, variety is strange to most persons. Okay. Pretty abstract. We're talking about variety being strange. So, okay, not sure what we're really going to unpack. We don't really directly address patriotism or family or anything like that. Variety is strange. Cool. I'm going to keep reading. Let's see what kind of variety and what kind of strange feeling we get. So this fact necessitates that the national state, which is interested in the cohesion of its parts, smooth over extreme differences. Ooh, okay. Now this is a little more direct. So we're saying the fact that variety is strange means that a nation should smooth over extreme differences.
Okay?
That's an argument, right? That's a little more clear than what else we've
Right.
got.
Right. Smooth over extreme depth. So you shouldn't have major differences.
Hmm.
But what differences are we talking about? What kind?
Yeah, that's true.
Religious, educational differences, cultural differences, like what kind? Like let's keep reading and see.
Yeah. In all of these states, therefore, we find the conscious or unconscious struggle against or the complete disregard of foreign ingredients and even of native differences. So we don't really get clarification of differences other than it could be both foreign and native. Again, we fight against difference. It sounds like we struggle against it. This is something that we see.
Yeah, sounds good.
So a state should smooth over difference from the last sentence. A typical example is the treatment of linguistic dialects in the schools. Okay, there's a semicolon. Normally we would stop and reflect. It sounds like this is going to be an example, but I don't really know what you're going to say about this. So I'm going to finish.
Yeah.
It says, yeah, schools teach a uniform pronunciation, especially in a nation like France, where all citizens are meant to speak as if they live in the city of Paris. Okay, this helps a little bit. We're talking about dialects now, right? We don't want, in this case, in this specific instance, we don't want differences in the dialect that we speak in France. So this is helping us understand, right? You may naturally have different dialects or ways of speaking in different areas, but we always teach Parisian French or the Parisian dialect. I feel like
Right.
that's just helping us understand the fact that the nation is going to smooth over differences.
Right. So now I get it, right? Like you don't want these varieties, right? Because it might
Mm-hmm.
hurt your patriotism. So
Mm-hmm.
okay, so you have to smooth over extreme differences. Um,
Yes.
okay, makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But this does seem a little kind of like random. Not
Random. I was going to say the same thing.
like it has nothing to do with what we've been talking about. Like we've been
Yeah.
talking about like patriotism and familial home.
Family. Yeah.
It kind of like the fourth paragraph also mentioned like the conflict, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of random too. So I'm happy because at least we found something that makes sense, right? The last paragraph, we had no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
But don't be surprised if you get a passage where you find the main idea sooner, and then the last couple paragraphs are just random one-off arguments, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also, you could say the opposite could happen, where you have random one-off arguments, and then the main arguments come showing up at the latter half of the passage, right? You never know. Everyone's different in how they write their essays or their arguments or their passages. So you just have to read it all and try to understand their structure.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so glad that you bring that up because this is something that makes a lot of students panic, especially if they had an idea that they felt was really clear and then you get the abstract stuff towards the end. Whew. I know I've worked with a lot of students that feel really overwhelmed. So I'm glad that you're sharing that with our audience, Jack.
Sure.
Okay, paragraph 7. It's our final paragraph. Hopefully, we get some resolution here. It says the drabness of modern life caused by modern industry and technology is aggravated by this tendency against, quote, local patriotism, end quote. Okay, most of what I'm picking up on here is word choice. With modern life, it's drab and it's being aggravated. I don't think the author feels that whatever's going on is very positive, right? Not the most positive outlook on modern life. But this drabness is aggravated by, you know, opposing local patriotism. Maybe that's what they mean in the last paragraph. I'm unsure. But what I am sure of is modern life is drab and it's pretty negative, not the most favorable.
Yeah, not so easy to understand, kind of random again,
Hmm.
being in modern life, but okay, we understand it, right? Just
Hmm. I feel like now the author's just spitballing. Like they have our attention and now they're just kind of rambling. Thus, the modern large state and even the small state, insofar as its parts have some affinity for each other, is based on diminished or faded local patriotisms. Okay. We're talking about the large state and the small state. I don't know. I mean, to be honest with you, this sentence also is just so abstract.
well, I mean, so far I see one term constantly repeat, right?
Local patriotism.
So I know there's something to do with that, right? And I'm thinking local, what does that mean? Like within a city, within a
Yeah, smaller. Yeah.
state, within a state of a country? Like, like, I don't get it, right? Let's keep going. Let's see where they're going with this.
Hmm. Last sentence. Modern day patriotism is all the worse for smoothing over local differences.
Huh.
Okay. Yeah. Now this sounds very similar to paragraph 6, where that was one of the roles of the national state is to smooth over extreme differences. Now we're saying this is all the worse for doing this. So maybe this is a problem, right? We're smoothing over large differences, and maybe that's a problem.
Yeah,
Maybe
at
it's
least
not
on the
good.
local level. On the local level, don't smooth out local differences.
Mhm.
But on a national level, smooth out the local differences.
Yeah.
It's two separate ideas, two separate paragraphs. Just got to keep track of these ideas. And yes, there was an example tied to, the paragraph 6, not the deepest example, but that is considered an example. Same for
Mhm.
paragraph 4. There's an example there, building a dam. They could ask questions about that. You need to know what was linked to it, right? What
Mhm.
argument was linked to the dam? Oh, that was the whole idea of patriotism may conflict with the Heimlet Liebe, right?
Mhm.
Or the idea of Paris, right? The linguistic stuff. That's all tied to smoothing out extreme differences on a national level, right?
Mhm.
In this paragraph, they didn't give us an example. That would have been cool. I'm actually curious to know like what kind of examples that could be exactly.
Mhm.
I could only guess, but maybe, how we're educated, or something to do with music that we listen to or whatever. But,
Yeah.
overall, I get it, right? Don't smooth out, don't try to make it all uniform on a local level, but do
Mhm.
make things more uniform on a national level, which makes sense because if you want to be patriotic to your country, you all want to have the same kind of principles, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So big idea, like it wasn't obvious in the latter half, but big idea is what? Like what is like the most important thing here that we should take away from this passage?
So I feel like the most cohesive argument was about patriotism and family,
Yeah,
right? That patriotism is at its best when family is involved, right? Because that's paragraph 1. We had kind of defined patriotism as this, like, basically familial attachment.
right.
Paragraph 2, we said this idea very directly. That's the paragraph that I'm leaning on to talk about the main idea, but we talked about it again in paragraph 3 with Heimat Liebe. We talked about it again in paragraph 4 as part of the conflict that we were navigating. But I think that is the most supported, right? And again, it was kind of at that point in paragraph 4 that we started to take a U-turn and start talking about a bunch of random stuff. That I think is the one that is the most unifying for the passage. So that's what I would go with.
Amazing. Yeah. And they do define family in multiple ways, but
Hmm.
ultimately kept coming back to it, right? That patriotism is best when it involves his family. Yes, there might be some conflicts
Yeah.
here, find it in this way and do it this way. But that's it. That like we found it early on, the first 3, 4 paragraphs, and then the rest were kind of random one-off paragraphs. And that's just how the dice rolled for this passage. You never know what kind of passage you're going to get, and this one ended up being a denser passage where the main idea was found earlier on. You may get a denser passage where the main idea is found later on. You may find a very easy passage where the main argument's found later on. You never know. You just have to go with the flow.
Yeah. Sometimes it's straight up in the middle, right? Like you have no clue.
Right.
But that's the beauty of cars in a way. It's something that's so intimidating from the beginning of, when you first start doing cars, every passage feels like an entirely different beast, right? Like an entirely different topic, an entirely different structure, a different number of paragraphs. Some might feel longer than others, some might feel clearer than others. The beauty of the cars strategies and the cars community that we built is we approach every passage exactly the same way. I feel like that's how, Jack, you're able to smile even when reading a passage that's so complex, right? It's because you know, based on your confidence in your abilities and your strategies and with the perspective you have, that if it doesn't make sense to you when you're reading it carefully, you're not meant to understand it. And that's okay. Some
Right.
passages are just more abstract, and that's fine.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's very valuable to those of us, we're kind of at a point where about maybe half of us are about to take our test within the next month, and the other half are probably joining us just starting our cars prep. So something that I wanted to reiterate and pass on, if anyone is listening to this and they're new to cars, right? That's the goal. Find a strategy, stick with it, treat every passage the same way, regardless of the topic or how dense it seems to you.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, just practice, 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 practice. You will start noticing trends. There is a formula to this, just like there's a formula to solving science and math questions.
Hmm.
Art is very formulaic when you start doing a lot of these passages, especially the AAMC ones and our daily passages. They're very uniform in how they ask questions and how they present information. And so if you keep looking, you will find general trends, but obviously every passage has uniqueness. And so don't be fooled or don't be discouraged when you see those differences. Just keep going. So
Absolutely. And if this is your first episode and you are looking for more cars experience, we've done, gosh, probably more than 10 of these. We put them out every week. So if you want more, come check out some of our other episodes that we've done. We've hit on a lot of different types of passages, different levels of difficulty, different topics. So check out our other car skills workshops. We hope that you've enjoyed our walkthrough of patriotism from August 13th. If you want to try the questions associated with this passage, check the link in the description, or you can, if you're listening to this on August 13th, you could go to jackwestin.com to see it on our website. If you want extra practice and it's not August 13th, go to jackwestin.com anyways, because we put out free cars passages every single day, right? We call them our dailies, although we have a ton more in our queue bank. So practice, practice, practice. Make sure you get a chance to attempt the questions. And we hope we catch you in the next one. Have a lovely rest of your day, and we hope to see you soon.